All right, you know, I was going to talk about it. It hit headlines this week. The Order 1886 is in the news because we potentially could have gotten a lot more of it. This comes directly from the horse's mouth, an interview with one of the directors. There were a lot of big plans for this, and I want to talk about it because if you guys know, if some of you probably knew around here, but I've been banging the drum for this damn game. 2015's Order 1886, a game that I have not been able to give up talking about. I'm like a broken record at this point. Got a fresh copy right here, in fact. I love this game, okay? This is like why I like video games. Cool, weird new worlds, fun adventures, crazy shit. Yes, I agree. It was too short, and we can talk more about that in a little bit. But the news this week is really interesting. This is coming by way of VGC, Video Games Chronicle. The creative director, Ru Wirasuria, if I'm saying that right, did an interview with Julien Chiez. This interview goes in depth a little bit about the cancellation. We've actually heard from developers at Ready at Dawn, or former Ready at Dawn, talking about this in the past. There was a great interview with MinMax in February of this year, I believe. But this new information comes from the creative director, who said that there was a sequel in the works. Yes. Apparently, this sequel was in the early stages of development before being canceled. The way it seems this pans out, especially when you look at this interview and the interview from February of different people, Sony hadn't seemingly directly greenlit a sequel, but chances are these developers started kind of working on it as things wrapped up for the previous game, because they finish a game and then there's a little bit of time before it actually releases. So they were probably already doing some sequel stuff, at least some fiddling around on some ideas for a sequel. And the creative director said specifically that he wrote a 10-page pitch for the sequel, which would have included, and I quote, far bigger fights as well as multiplayer. Multiplayer was in development for the first game before being shelved for the sequel. Okay, so let's unpack that, because holy shit. Multiplayer, don't really need it. Take it or leave it. 2015, I feel like, was at the point where we were starting to move away from every single player action adventure game having multiplayer shoehorned into it. Don't really need it. If it was something like a Gears of War, cool, why not? The early days of Gears of War multiplayer were great, and that could have fit perfectly in this world, but multiplayer, really not needed. Great that a sequel would have it, cool, whatever. I don't care. I think the fact that there was a sequel and that it was going to have bigger battles is huge, because essentially the war with the half-breeds and stuff could have really ramped up. The end of the previous game implied some stuff, and they really could have gone bigger. Apparently, thanks to these interviews, there was a lot that was left on the cutting room floor for the first game. They just ran out of time. I guess maybe ran out of budget, because it was such a cutting-edge big cinematic thing. They could only really do so much, and they apparently had to cut corners and make some things more movie and cutscene and less interactive cutscenes. So I think a second game could have really expanded on a lot of that. Not only that, it doesn't stop there. Apparently, there was plans for this to be a trilogy. Yeah, apparently, according to him, the Order 1886 will be followed up with this sequel that he had a 10-page pitch for that was called The Order 1891, and then there was eventually going to be an Order 1899, with the idea of this being an actual trilogy. And that kills me, because there's so much potential there. And especially, again, going back to the fact that the first game really ended kind of on just when it started to get cool, just when it started to get interesting and really ramp up, ends on a cliffhanger, just like a hard stop. So it felt like it was begging for this type of trilogy storytelling, and that kills me. Now, just if you haven't seen my video, I did a video like a year or so ago all about the Order 1886, replaying it, kind of re-reviewing it. Check that out if you want. Andrew, put the thumbnail here, or we'll link it or whatever. Essentially, real short elevator pitch for people. Okay, so what if King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table ended up kind of becoming, they found a substance that could make them live longer, and then they essentially became these kind of super cop Avengers kind of team, right? So this is all going down in a kind of accelerated steampunk London, where technology is rapidly advancing, and this team, and it's the people with the titles and everything, like Sir Gawain, Galahad, Lucan, all those people, all these knights at the guys with cool steampunk weapons fighting werewolves. And then, not only are they fighting werewolves, at the end of the game, it's revealed that also vampires are around. And Sir Galahad, the main guy you play as, goes rogue. There's so much to that. It could have been so good because that first game is really focused on a couple of really big, interesting key set pieces and world building. You know, the second game could have really doubled down on Galahad and his relationships and the fact that they introduced vampires at the end of the game. Are you kidding me? It seems like a series that was begging for vampires. So if this went on to like some whole all-out vampire war, dude, I would have shit my pants. Apparently, this creative director, and I quote, also said that he had written stories for the Order franchise that took place in the 20th century. That could have been really cool, because that's something I was like, it sounds so silly, but that was something like I imagined right at the start, right? Like seeing the Order people, seeing the setting of the Order game, but World War I, and then maybe World War II. And because of this like alternate steampunk history, you know, how would have things turned out? Would these wars have even happened? What would the warfare be like? There was a lot of potential there. You know, the Order 1886 and the way it was set up, you know, wasn't, of course, like we've seen steampunk things, we've seen cool guys in mustaches with like Tesla coil weapons and other things, but like just the way it all came together here just felt really special, and I really think a trilogy could have hammered that home. Of course, this interview and the previous interview that I mentioned before with the Ready at Dawn co-founder that MinMax did, essentially a lot of it came down to the mixed reception of the game. When it released, apparently the Metacritic score, the review scores, and just people buying into the game was not high enough for that series to move forward. Apparently it was like just on the cusp. And it's amazing. I feel like I'm like the only person who really is crazy about this game. I've seen other games go on to have this similar track record with Sony, and have a fan base rallying around it, right? Like I always compare Order 1886 to Days Gone. Days Gone released, had some mixed critical reviews here and there, but ultimately was still like a pretty cool game, you know? Very special, had a lot of cool elements that just really clicked with certain groups of fans. But that was it. They never made a sequel. Apparently they wanted to, never happened, blah, 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 blah. And now you just have people rallying around Days Gone. I am that person, but for the Order 1886. So I think honestly, if anything, all I can ask is this creative director, Mr. Wirasoria, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but like you had apparently said you wrote a 10-page pitch. I would love for that to be out there in the world. I think fans such as myself would love to read through that pitch, see some of the concepts. I know in the video game world, it sucks. Like, I don't know if it's the case with this, but in the video game world, so much stuff, even projects that never see the light of day, are so hidden behind NDAs and former employer agreements and stuff. But like, we're getting to the point where Ready at Dawn as a studio has been bought by other companies and then disbanded. It's no longer a thing anymore. I would just really love to see this pitch get out there somehow. Just like how things had leaked about Half-Life 3 back in the day, some ideas behind that and how some people kind of slipped it out there. I would love to see just a little something, a little glimpse of what could have been from the Order 1886, because a lot of the developers, a lot of the Ready at Dawn people at least have been kind enough to give us such interesting little morsels in interviews. I want to see something, some concept art, a pitch document, something. It's a shame because I really think like in today's day and age, as much as like, you know, we've all grown pretty cynical about video games and sequels and IP and taking big bets, right? I do feel like with the current technology and where things are at in making games, and like we look at things like Expedition 33 recently, I think the Order 1886 could have been a thing. It could have worked now. These types of cinematic, crazy, beautiful games are still very difficult to make, yes, but they have gotten easier in some instances. And I think that maybe, you know, if a studio had some confidence behind this could have really become something. Not to mention the fact that like we've also talked more and more recently. I did a video for GameRanks recently about some big publishers, like some AAA publishers, pricing their games to more reflect the experience. Like Mafia: The Old Country releasing soon is only going to be $50, and they said that they're doing that specifically because of the length and it being a single player narrative adventure. Like if the Order 1886 now released at like that interesting kind of hybrid price point, like if they put it out for a smaller price and they're like, yeah, it's a short game, play it, love it. I don't know. I think there could have been more of a future here. At the time, there was just so much hype about this game, so much buildup for years, and then it released and it just didn't quite hit people's expectations with like, you know, the staying power. The game was so short, brutally short. And again, I think it's not even just length. It's also just how just as it started to get interesting, it was over. it faded to black. And unfortunately, that's like an example of the game and its future itself. Just as it started to get interesting, it faded to black. So that's where we're at. It's just like me, just like one weird 30 plus year old complaining about a game from 2015 on the internet. And every once in a while, someone who worked on that game comes out and does a small interview. And I freak out. Again, I've said it before, but like, at least if you want to see what I'm raving about, the game is like 4 or 5 hours long. And at this point, you can get it relatively cheap. So you're not going to feel like you're ripped off or shortchanged or anything like that. Just to see what could have been here, man. I'm really hoping, like, obviously, like, Sony will sit on a brand or a trademark forever. I would love to see some sort of new media continuation of this, a comic book, a novelization, something, because I just love the concept. I love the steampunk stuff, of course, this cool, gritty London, but also the Arthurian Knights legend mixed with a dash of superhero stuff, and then smashed up against vampires and werewolves. That's just, I know like there are other things out there like that, but in the video game world, like I come to video game worlds for cool shit, and they just really hit it. And I don't know, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I just wanted to talk about Order 1886 this week. So thank you for humoring me. Again, Sony sits on the intellectual property, so will something happen? Will it not? Who knows? Maybe it's going to go the way of Bloodborne, where people just talk about sequels forever and nothing ever happens. I don't know. At least it was acknowledged in Astro's Playroom. They had a little Sir Galahad Astro that you could get. So yeah, I'll take that, I guess. But for now, until we hear anything else, this just goes back in my display case. But I do want to know what you guys think about the Order 1886. We've talked about it a little bit in the past. I've chatted with some of you guys in the comments. Thank you for a lot of you guys who saw this interview and immediately tagged me in it. I appreciate it. I like that, like, when you guys hear of Order 1886, you think of me. Thank you. Anybody former at Ready at Dawn, reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about it off the record. That would be really cool. But either way, man, I just want to know what you guys are thinking about this news story. You can watch the interview. You can read up on it. It's all linked in the description down below, of course. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about Order 1886 and the possible trilogy, 1891 and 1890. Let's talk. I want to hear from you. If you like this video and you get what I'm trying to do here, I talk about gaming news, but ultimately I try and talk about stuff I like, stuff I find interesting. Clicking the like button helps me. Thank you. I know this was just like a rambling man today, but I appreciate you guys being here. So let me know what you think. But that's it. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games, pizza's on me.